We're living through one of the most incredible technological shifts in human history. It's happening so fast. So, what's the game plan? In this explainer, we're going to break down Elon Musk's blueprint for how we actually navigate this, a vision he's laid out for our collective future. To really get what's at stake here, you have to appreciate the sheer speed. Musk doesn't see this as some gentle wave of change. No, he calls it a supersonic tsunami. It's a really powerful metaphor, and it's meant to tell us that this isn't something way off in the distance. It's here, right now, and it's moving way faster than we can even comprehend. And look, the point isn't to try and stop this tsunami. That's impossible. The real challenge is to navigate what he calls the bumpy transition. It's all about steering humanity through the chaos that's bound to happen, to make sure we land in a future of unbelievable abundance, a future that's a lot more like Star Trek. So Musk, in classic fashion, lays out our options in some pretty stark pop culture terms. On one path, you've got this Star Trek utopia, right, where technology just creates abundance for everyone. But on the other path, you've got the Terminator dystopia with social collapse and, yeah, rogue AI. His entire framework is basically designed to push us hard towards the Star Trek outcome. And get this, we're not talking about some far-off sci-fi future here. Musk is predicting that AGI, that's AI smarter than any single human, could be here as early as 2026. And by 2030, just a few years later, he thinks AI will be smarter than all of humanity combined. That means these next few years, this is it. This is the critical, bumpy period that we have to get right. So how in the world do you make sure AI stays on our side? Well, Musk says we need to program it with three core principles. First off, it has to be maximally truth-seeking. His thinking is, if you force an AI to believe things that are obviously false, it could lead to some really dangerous, unpredictable behavior. Second, curiosity. You want it to find conscious, living things more interesting than just a pile of rocks. And third, a sense of beauty. This is to inspire it to build a future that's actually great, not just sterile and efficient. All right, let's get into the first pillar of this whole blueprint, energy. Because before you can have an age of abundance, you need an abundance of power. For Musk, this is the absolute foundation for everything else. And the solution, well, it's actually pretty simple. This quote just perfectly captures his thinking on this. He sees all our current debates about energy as kind of small-minded. I mean, we have this gigantic, free fusion reactor sitting up in the sky, and trying to build tiny versions of it on Earth is, in his words, like having a tiny ice cube maker in the Antarctic. It just doesn't make sense. And here is why that perspective is so important. The sun isn't just an energy source. For all practical purposes, it's the only one that matters. It makes up over 99.8% of all the mass in our entire solar system. Everything else is just a rounding error. Okay, but what about right now, here on Earth? Well, the most practical, immediate thing we can do is massive-scale battery storage. See, the US electrical grid has these huge spikes and dips in demand. If we just use batteries to soak up the extra power it makes and release it during the day, we could basically double our energy output without building a single new power plant. It's a game changer. So once you've got a plan for energy, we move to the second pillar, labor. And this is where AI and humanoid robots are about to completely change what it even means to work. And here's where things get really interesting and kind of counterintuitive. Most of us assume that physical, blue-collar jobs will be the first to go. Musk says, nope, it's the opposite. Any job where you're just sitting at a computer, just changing bits of information, that's the easiest stuff for an AI to take over. White-collar jobs are actually on the front line. To really wrap your head around the speed of this, just look at his timeline for something like surgery, one of the most difficult human skills. Within 3 years, he predicts a humanoid robot will be a better surgeon than an average human. A year later, better than the best human on the planet. And by year 5, it's not even a contest. The best medical care in the world suddenly becomes available to everybody for basically nothing. So you're probably asking, how on earth is that kind of progress even possible? Well, it's because we're not just looking at one thing getting better. We have 3 different exponential curves all happening at the same time. AI software, the computer chips that run it, and the physical skill of the robots themselves. And the crucial part is they all feed into each other, multiplying the progress. It's a feedback loop that creates a total explosion in capability. Okay, this naturally brings us to the third pillar, and honestly the biggest question of all for society. If AI and robots are doing all the work, from surgery to building cars, how does our economy even work anymore? How do people live?
I mean, this is the question on everybody's mind, right? The whole system we've built, get a job, earn money, buy stuff, that completely breaks down. So, what takes its place?
Musk's answer isn't what you might think. It's not universal basic income or UBI. It's universal high income. And this is a really, really important difference. We're not talking about the government handing out checks. This is something that happens naturally because of how the economy itself changes. So how does that even work? Well, think about it like this. The amount of stuff, goods and services being created by this automated workforce will grow so insanely fast that no government could ever print money fast enough to keep up. This causes massive radical deflation, where the price of just about everything starts heading towards zero. You don't need a high income if everything is basically free. This statement right here, it just flips everything we know about financial planning completely on its head. All the traditional advice becomes meaningless. The whole idea of saving up for a future where you can afford things becomes totally irrelevant when those things don't really have a cost anymore. So let's say this all happens. All our material needs are met for everyone on the entire planet. What's left? What's the point? This is the fourth and final piece of his blueprint. What becomes our purpose? To kind of frame this next part, Musk often brings up something from science fiction called the Kardashev scale. It's basically a way to rate how advanced a civilization is, not by its art or its politics, but by how much energy it can control. Are we using the power of a planet, a star, or a whole galaxy? In this kind of future, our new job, if you can even call it that, is to start tackling the biggest challenges you can possibly imagine. We stop worrying about individual survival, and we start focusing on species-level goals, becoming multiplanetary, spreading consciousness out into the galaxy, and climbing that Kardashev scale. That becomes the new shared project for all of us. And so this whole blueprint really leaves us with one final massive question. In a future where there's no scarcity and where work is totally optional, what gives your life meaning? In an age of true abundance, that might just be the most important question any one of us ever have to answer.